All right, guys, today I'm going to talk to you about difficult conversations, how to have them, what to think about, what are the core elements of having a difficult conversation go well, and how you can get through them with success. So, when I'm talking about difficult conversations, we can think of many examples, but what comes to mind is, performance evaluations at work, critical feedback conversations and things of that nature, as well as, at the family level or in partnerships and things like that, friendships even, where you have a disagreement with somebody and you had a misunderstanding and now you have to talk it out, or maybe you have repeatedly the same fights over and over again. So this prep sheet, this preparation method that I help people with ensures that these conversations go very well, very smoothly, and that you avoid kind of damaging relationships, which is always great. So the first thing I'll tell you is that there's 3 levels to every difficult conversation, and you can picture it kind of like an iceberg, where above the water we see the first level, and this is the facts conversation, and I'll get into all that in a second, but this is what we see. This is what the data points are, the stories of who said what, things like that. The next conversation down is the feelings conversation. So it's really helpful to think about before you go in how you're feeling and how the other people or person might be feeling also. And I'll tell you some keys for that. And then lastly is the identity conversation. So typically a serious conversation is going to, if you have a disagreement or, like I said, evaluation, it's going to say something about that person, maybe about both people, or at least the implication could be there. So it's really important to think about identity as well. All right, so starting off with the facts conversation and what are the key things to think about, the first thing to think about is the story. So this is where you think about, what happened and what's wrong and why. So, for example, with the feedback conversation, let's say my employee is turning in work late, it's low quality, and this is an issue. This is my story from my point of view. And what is the data that I have is the next thing to think about. Well, on the assignment from last Friday, he turned it in 2 days late. It was incomplete in these areas. So it's important to have data points, of course. But we also have to think about what is the story from their point of view and what data might they use. It could turn out that, maybe he didn't get the assignment until later, or there was another thing that you had forgotten about. There's always things to think about. What's the story from their point of view and what data might they use? Maybe you already know, because a lot of these conversations are repeat, like I said. So you already have an idea of the data that they're pulling from. So that's important for the facts conversation. The other things really important to think about is contribution. What have both sides done that has contributed to this situation being what it is? And so for me, if I'm the boss and I have these problems with my employee, then maybe I most likely have contributed to the situation where I didn't put in a system for evaluation or for submission of assignments, or I didn't get them the assignment earlier, or I didn't communicate in some way. I guarantee you, if you're having a difficult conversation with someone, there is always something that you yourself have done to contribute to the situation becoming difficult. So, and I also can't emphasize enough how helpful it is to simply acknowledge that. I think a lot of times people dig in their heels and they don't acknowledge that they also have not been perfect or had done some things wrong. And so it really facilitates the solutions and the agreements to come. And the last thing, and I'll do another post on this, is intentions and impact. So in the past, have you had these conversations before? What were your intentions? And then how might that have impacted them? And then in the reverse, how have they impacted you? And what might their intentions have been? So it's really, we know our intentions, but we have to guess at theirs. And we don't always know our impact on them. So really thinking about this stuff, with my help, or, really reflecting on these things before a difficult conversation. This is the facts level, impact and intentions. All right, next one down, the feelings conversation. So a lot of times the feelings are ignored until it's too late, until the anger is too much, and you see on their face they're irritated, you see in their body language, and we can maybe infer and things like that. We don't want to wait that long. We want to anticipate ahead of time what our feelings are coming in and what theirs might be as well. So, we talk about emotions, fear, anger, joy, sadness. These are the basic emotions. You've got the self-conscious emotions, pride, guilt, and shame. Now, we can probably take pride and joy out of those and just think about these negative emotions that can come to the surface. Well, they're based on 6 core concerns. All right, 6 core concerns, and I'll go through them here. The first one is autonomy. Everybody wants to feel like they're in charge of their own life, like they have control, and things like that. So you can imagine if you've got a boss who is reprimanding constantly or micromanaging, this core concern of autonomy is going to be threatened, and it's going to cause emotions to come to the surface. So this is a core concern you need to think about. Affiliation. This is really big for group identities, or for if you're having a difficult time in your friend group or your work group, any type of team. Affiliation is really important, in that like a disagreement or a difficult conversation may threaten that. They may think that their affiliation to this group is under attack. So something to think about there. Appreciation is the third one. Pretty straightforward. People want to be seen and appreciated for the hard work that they're putting in. So just making sure you do that in a sincere way. The next one is role. So people are holding positions in society, in families, in relationships. We play all types of roles. Now, is the difficult conversation, the issue that you're bringing it up, is it threatening this person's sense of their ability to fulfill that role? And it's very similar to identity, which we'll talk about next. And then status is a big one, especially with workplace situations, but oftentimes in families too. Are you speaking out of turn? Are you challenging your superior? Is this appropriate? So you want to make sure that we're accounting for status, because emotions will come really, really quickly if someone feels that their status is being threatened, or that if you're not recognizing a rank or things like that. So definitely a core concern. And then the last one is fairness. And again, you can imagine how spite or anger and its different forms can arise if someone feels they're being treated unfairly. Are you going outside of a system to reprimand somebody? Do other people receive the same type of discipline and things like that? Just making sure everybody's treated fairly. So autonomy, affiliation, appreciation, role, status, and fairness. These are the core concerns. Okay, so lastly, the third one down, remember this is the closest we protect, is our identity. The emotions protect the identity. So if someone's getting angry about or defensive, it's really about their identity and what they perceive that this conversation is saying about them. So if we take the example of the employee who is being told by his boss that his work is not up to par, and it's not creative enough, or it's not X, Y, and Z. This person can now think, well, does this mean I'm lazy? Does this mean I'm not a good engineer? Does this mean that I'm not a worthy partner? If you're fighting within partnerships, a lot of times it's like, people want to defend themselves as being a good partner. And so it's really important to think about, before you go into the conversation on your own end, what do I fear that this situation might say about me? Do I fear that I might be controlling? Do I fear, that I might be too aggressive? Is it true or is it not? That's the key. But then I think most importantly is thinking about how the other person might be triggered, because you can really go a long way by saying, I'm not saying this about you. I'm not saying it about you as a person. Again, focusing on the conversation at hand, I'm talking about these 3 assignments that are, not as good as your previous work, and I know you can do better. There's always a way you can frame things better, but you can really avoid having the other person misunderstand and feel threatened that their entire identity is being implicated, because you have a disagreement or because you have a evaluation that you're giving them. So facts, feelings, and identity, something to think about. I really love helping people with this stuff, and like I said, you can really get ahead at work. You can really just have more peace and harmony in your relationships in general by thinking about these things. So leave me a comment, and I hope to hear from you soon.